Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL Podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL Podcast, your podcast to cruise a little smarter. I'm your host, Lake, and I am joined by my co-host, Christy. Christy, how are we today?
I am great. Lake, how are you?
Doing pretty well. Excited to record this episode. A good old standard sailing, as I'd like to say, but I think we definitely need more of those in our lives.
I know. We haven't done like a proper 7-night itinerary in a while. It's either been a Southern or it's on the Wish and it's shorter, or the double dips or things like that. So yeah, this is exciting. And I'm going to give a little teaser. We are going to the Eastern Caribbean, and I just made my port excursions reservations for my Eastern Caribbean cruise on the Treasure in January. So I'm excited to hear about these ports again. It's been a minute since even I've been to them.
This is the sailing that I keep planning on booking, and then we end up booking something else, arguably usually more adventurous and more fun. But yeah, this is like an elusive sailing.
For shame.
Fun. Alaska, potentially a Europe sailing next year.
I'm just saying that January seems like a lovely time. You have a ton of vacation days, you keep telling me, but it seems like a lovely time to go get your Eastern Caribbean cruise.
You're not wrong. We could consider. But to talk about this episode, we are bringing on Chris to the show. Chris, how are you today?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We are doing all right. Very excited to talk about this episode. Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about your Disney and Disney cruising background?
Yep. So my family started cruising back in 2014 with a Disney Cruise Line. It was my wife and my son, Jake, at that time. And my wife works for an IT company. And as a way to thank all their employees, they actually booked us on a 3-night sailing on the Disney Dream. And that's kind of when we got our first experience with Disney Cruise Line itself. I think in 1994 was on a Royal Caribbean cruise with my family on the Sovereign of the Seas. But the Disney cruise that I think really solidified DCL for us as a family was our 2018 sailing. It involved myself, my wife, Sarah, my son, Jake, and my daughter, Brooklyn, who was under 3 at that time, my sister and her future husband, and my dad and his significant other. So we had a very large sailing, a 5-night on the Magic that went to Key West back in the day. And I have so many amazing photos and videos from that sailing. I think that is what really sold me on DCL, and we haven't looked back since.
And I think it's safe to say you were bit by the bug, because the sailing we're talking about today is actually your first platinum sailing.
Correct. Yes, it was. So this was a sailing for the family of 4, my wife, Sarah, Michael, and Brooklyn. And this was a present for Jake graduating middle school. I kind of let him pick a couple different cruise options that would be right when we get out of school. In Tennessee, school gets out nice and early, so the 2nd or 3rd week in May. So I find a really nice time before prices get summer expensive. So we picked a 7-night on the Fantasy Eastern, and we picked the Eastern because of trying out new ports, and based on previously we went on a Western right before or the first sailing right after COVID. One of those two was a 7-night Western. So that's why we picked a Eastern this time. And Fantasy holds a special area in my heart. It was the ship that my wife and I went on for our honeymoon. Being a pharmacist, a small business owner, so we postponed our honeymoon about 5 years. So we got to go on the Fantasy, and that was a very, very special sailing for me and my wife.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. We are going to go day by day here, which means we have 7 exciting nights to get into. Why don't you start with, how did we get to the port?
So my family, whenever we sail out of Port Canaveral, we will typically stay at the Hyatt at the airport, the MCO, and use Disney ground transfers. In our previous sailings, we used to stay at hotels in Cocoa Beach and kind of rely on their transportation. And we found that Those transportations will stop at all the ports and then stop at Disney's last. So it winds up being a long bus ride in the morning. We wound up looking into Disney transfers and found that, and we've kind of never looked back. I typically will always book it for any of our sailings, whether they're out of Port Canaveral or Port Everglades. And we typically will stay at the airport so that we don't need to rent a car to get to the hotel or use another ride share. So just another little savings tip. I personally like the hotel at the airport also, and it's really easy to get breakfast with all the food offerings in the food court. Really easy to go get some Dunkin', Chick-fil-A, McDonald's for the kids early in the morning. One thing that was nice and different compared to our other sailings as far as the ground transfers is the process that changed from our previous sailing the previous year. In previous sailings, you would kind of just check in at the airport. They sign you a bus and you get on the bus and then get to the port, and then you would go through the entire check-in process. Well, that has since changed. Now we'll do all that remotely at the hotel. So based on your Castaway Club status and your room, so concierge and Pearl, I think we'll go down at 8, and then every 30 minutes from there on, we'll go to platinum, gold, silver, and first-time sailors. Everything is in the email. But this time now, you go down with your entire party with all your documentations, whether it's passport, magic, and your magic bands or your birth certificates, and they will actually check you in at the hotel. Once you're on the bus, you can put all your stuff away. You just need your boarding pass. You get to the port. Basically, you show that and you walk right in. Just go through the little security checkpoint where they scan your bags. And before you know it, you're waiting in the terminal for your boarding group to be called. The other big plus I like with the Disney ground transfers is you would typically get a very early boarding group versus your Castaway Club status. So in all my sailings, I have typically been in a group 3 or a group 4, meaning, you're typically on the ship maybe by 11:30, 11:45, the latest.
What time does the bus typically leave the hotel?
Yep. So the first bus, I believe, will leave at 9:15 to 9:45, and that's going to be based on how many buses are required. I've seen as many as 5 or 6 buses.
Because you could get there as early as 10 o'clock then.
They tell you to get down in the waiting area around that time, and then it's probably another 10 to 15 to get everyone on the bus.
Okay.
And so you're probably leaving closer to 9:45. You're in the waiting area around 9:15, 9:30 for them to make the Mickey or whatever character you have call. And then the other thing is I love being able to leave our luggage in our room. We put the cruising tags on it, and then we leave a little tip for the porters to always make sure your bags make it on the ship. So that's always a big plus. You don't have to lug it around anymore. And I like the buses. They do have bathrooms, and they do show a Disney movie because of the length of the ride.
Well, we get to the port. It sounds like pretty smooth embarkation process. What was it like getting back on the Fantasy for you and your family?
I always enjoy the little walk through the ears, kind of get the camera ready for the name announcement. I always appreciate that, and it's always an enjoyable moment to see the smiles on my kids and my wife's face as they say, "Welcome the Konechny family," and we all look up at the glorious chandelier and take a look at the beautiful atrium, and then we figure out where we're heading next. It's typically the pool deck. For my daughter loves going swimming, so she typically has her bathing suit on and goggles in my backpack. And my son Jake will typically go check out the kids club areas, see if there's anything going on in Edge, or Vibe will sign him the waiver for him to age up to that one also. And then we'll get a good chair on the pool deck, and I will start to grab food for everyone. We'll grab some food from the pool deck, some hot dogs, hamburgers, French fries, and then we'll go into Cabanas and grab a little seafood to enjoy while we're just waiting for our room to get ready and kind of getting your sea legs ready.
Why don't we go ahead and move towards the stateroom while you mentioned it, and tell us a little bit about what stateroom you and your family booked and how that worked for you.
Yeah, so this was a room that I researched for quite some time. This room was 5018. It's a 8A category. It's on deck 5 forward past the movie theaters. And both the Dream and Fantasy have a few of these on either side of the ship. They are I would say a larger room, but a different room because these rooms don't have a split bathroom. So the way the room is shaped, it's it's an L. So when you walk in, the full bathroom is on the left side, large couch. Walk in a little further, the bed is on the right, and then the left, the bottom of the L, you'll have the closet, the desk, and the TV. There's two large portholes in this room. And this room I researched for quite some time and was really excited to give it a try. But my family loved it. All the extra space. The kids were like playing ball in the waiting area sometimes while we were waiting for some room service. So it was a very nice room. The only caveat with the room is you are right down the road from Vibe. So there are some times where you'll have some pitter patter in the hallways while the teenagers are running around, but that wasn't a problem at all.
How do we spend the rest of our embarkation day? Do we go to sail away party?
Mm-hmm.
What is the plan for your family?
Oh, typically we'll do the infamous drill, and then I will try to sprint up as many flights of stairs as needed to secure a nice viewing for the sail away party. So this time during the drill, kind of saw some clouds on the horizon. I was like, I wonder if they're gonna haul it to the inside. So I asked, and they said, no, nothing's been done. So Sarah and Brooklyn head back to the room. I get my running shoes on. We're on deck 4. I make it up to deck 8, and they make the announcement that it's now inside. By the time I got there, it wasn't an area for us to enjoy. So I actually wound up just heading back to the room, missed it, and unpacking our bags. So all wasn't lost, but we did not make the sail away party on this one.
So for sailing this length then, since you mentioned unpacking your bags, are you typically the type of family that will unpack everything and fully move into the room? Or are we unpacking some or some are living out of the suitcases?
Yep. So this was the first time I used cubes to pack for the family. And so we completely unpacked. I've actually learned that a lot of my daughters and my wife's dresses, I actually leave on hangers when I pack in the suitcase. Really makes unpacking nice and easy. And then we'll basically unpack all the suitcases and also decorate the door. Decorating the door is a real fun thing that my family likes to do. You'll see some of my posts. I collect everyone's magnets for the podcast, the YouTubers, anyone that I listen to for my Disney knowledge. I will get a magnet and throw it up on the door with lots of Disney princesses. So we will typically completely unpack, throw the suitcases underneath the bed, and decorate the door, put out the fish extender. We also have a pin exchange that hangs on the door, and then we'll order some room service, get a couple snacks while we unpack.
Well, moving into the evening, were we early or late dining for this sailing?
We were early dining. We've typically have done that in the past, and so far right now with my daughter still being a little young, we typically like the early dining and then visit the show after. So we've always done early dining and have enjoyed that. I think if we were to have a different sailing where you're having longer days at ports, I think we would shift that to a later or the second dining, but we've always done early dining on our sailings.
Awesome. Where was our first night dining?
Our first night, we were at the Enchanted Garden. I always really enjoy the seafood offerings at this menu. We enjoy the ahi tuna to start with, and then the sea bass for dinner is just delicious.
Yeah, that is still one of my favorite menus on board DCL. Love an Enchanted Garden.
And then I feel like lately they haven't been doing a show on 7-night sailings on DCL. Was that the case for your cruise?
That was correct. Yeah. There was not a show that evening. No.
Then how did we fill the rest of your evening on the first night?
My son probably went to the teens clubs, and my daughter and I and Sarah probably went up to get either soft serve and just kind of relax on the pool deck, and then kind of just go down and make it a early night.
Awesome. Well, 7-night Eastern, we get to start with 2 wonderful sea days on board the Fantasy. How do you like to spend your time aboard the ship?
Typically, we'll go through the app early on and kind of flag a couple activities that we definitely want to do. Some of those would include the Anyone Can Cook, which is offered, I think, 2 times or 3 times on these sailings. So I love going to those with my wife. Get a little sample of something the chef cooks and a little glass of wine. Brooklyn loves the pool. So we will go on the pool. We will go on any of the water slides, the little play area. That's where we'll spend most of the time. And then my son will go off and do some of the fun teen activities. With being on the fantasy, we definitely spent one of the sea days doing the midship detective. That was a lot of fun, a lot of decks to cover, but takes up a lot of time, and it's a great way to just explore the ship. I think we actually did it twice because we did the Dalmatian one and then the Muppet.
I love Midship Detective on the Wish, and apparently, the Triton class going forward, they have that QR code in front of a picture and something happens, and then that's fine, but it like goes on forever, right? Until maybe you can see it at the end. But I like that on the fantasy, it's like a start and a stop, and you can figure out who did it, if it's a who did it thing, or whatever the situation is. I just like that so much better. Can you remind me, how old are your kids again?
Oh, yeah. So on the sailing, Brooklyn was 8 and Jake was 13.
And did Brooklyn go into the kids club?
We tried this time to do a meetup. So with the Facebook group, we did a couple Zoom calls and met kids her age. And on the first day, we did go to the kids club before dinner and did a meetup with some of the other kids there to kind of get her feet wet. I don't think it worked out exactly what we thought it would. We did put her in the kids club because fast forward, we did have Palo brunch, my wife and I's first time doing Palo brunch. So she was in the kids club, at least for that. But other than that, she really was not in the kids club at all. She's my water baby. We could be in the pool all day long.
All right, well, why don't we move towards dining, kind of fill the different activities. What were your dining for these 2 days at sea?
The first day was at the Royal Court. With the Royal Court, some of the highlights was the filet steak, and I actually enjoyed the vegetarian wild mushroom stuffed pasta. Those were some of our favorites. And then obviously the souffle at for the dessert was the highlight of the evening. With the Royal Court, my wife and son got to try escargot for the first time, and they both enjoyed it. And since then, they've continued to order it on Disney Cruise Line. So it's I always try to get my daughter and son to try one new thing during a sailing because if they don't like it, mommy or daddy will eat it, but at least they get to try something new at dinner.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah, DCL is such a great place to try to be a more adventurous eater because, again, there's very little risk if you don't like it.
I need to remember to do that with Blake because he gets into a habit, and whatever meal he orders on the first day of the cruise is the meal he eats typically for the rest of the cruise.
I can confirm the servers get to know Blake's order very, very quickly because it does not vary at all.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that statement. We are mac and cheese family every night, starting with a garden salad with ranch dressing.
Oh my gosh. It's like the same order, Christy.
Yeah, literally.
It was too funny. I think it was last summer after we got back from one of our sailings. We went out to Logan's Roadhouse. My daughter ordered the same exact thing. She asked for a garden salad with ranch dressing as an appetizer, and then mac and cheese for dinner. And my wife and I both looked at us and just smiled and said, consistency.
What was the show this first night?
The first night was Aladdin.
Did you go? Are you show goers?
Yes, we will typically always try to go to the show, whether we stayed the whole time based on how tired we are. But yes, I do try to go as a family and enjoy some of the show. Now, Aladdin we saw a couple times on the Wish, but it's always make or break by how good the genie is. So we definitely stayed for this one. Typically, if there's a show and a pirate night, I might skip the show just so we could make the late pirate night show. But yes, we went to Aladdin and enjoyed it.
And then were there any other activities that you got into?
So I will typically go to DCL trivia if it's offered during the day. Towel folding also on some of the longer cruises we will go to. I think if there's any special character meet and greets that my daughter's interested in besides Royal Gathering, we will go to those. We don't really go and watch any of the movies unless they're on Funnel Vision. So we're not a big movie theater during our sailings, but we'll watch a movie while we're sitting in the pool.
Oh, we didn't discuss though. What did you do for lunch on those days? So like the sea days.
Typically we will, in order to feed Brooklyn, I will typically grab something from the pool deck, a hot dog, chicken fingers, French fries, and then my wife and I will go grab a plate each from Cabanas and kind of come out and sit at the pool. And then my daughter will eat her weight in soft serve. So there's a chance we are walking past ice cream. There's always a chance we will be leaving with a cone.
That is the correct way to do it.
Yes, yeah. I'm amazed as we sail more and more, the more and more ice cream cones we're able to fit in. It's just, Daddy, can I go and get ice cream? Yes, 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 yes. And it's fun.
Yeah, there's something special about deck food chicken tenders and deck food ice cream. I think it's just the availability of it, but I digress. Where was our dinner the second night?
The second night was Animators. This was the Crush menu. So this is one of our favorite menus because in the past, my son would always watch me eat the black truffle prissettes. And not on this sailing, but a previous one, I said, you need to really try this. And he tried it. And the look on his face was, I wish I ate these years ago. He was so excited. He would actually order the same thing with me for appetizer, where we get a double order, save the plate, just put as many as you can in a bowl and bring it out for an appetizer. So that's typically our very excitement. We order a couple black truffle prisset bowls for the table and some of the Serrano ham, all while we kind of interact with Crush and all the other little characters from Finding Nemo. And then for dinner, my favorite thing is the ginger teriyaki beef tenderloin. That is just absolutely to die for. Kind of reminds me of the 1923 filet steak, just really done well. Potatoes with it are delicious. Hands down, one of my favorite dinners. And then to end that evening is the warm, sticky date pudding. Can't pass that up with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. That is one of our favorite overall top to bottom menus.
Awesome. Did we get up to anything else in the evenings before we close these sea days out and move into port?
So that evening, the show was a magician. That was the first time we saw this particular person, and we really enjoyed it. It was great to see a couple people go on stage. He brought a couple kids on, a couple adults on. Really great 1 hour entertainment. Much different than a show, a lot of laughter. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Anything else you want to hit on before we move into day 4?
I think that's, yes, I think that is everything. Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully we had 2 fun and relaxing sea days on board the Fantasy, but now it is time to disembark the ship, and you are at your first port of call, Tortola. What did you have booked this day, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, so for this sailing, we booked the Joss Van Dyke Beach Day. For everyone, that's TT65. I always know when I listen to podcasts, I listen for that little number to jot down so I could do some research. At that time of booking, it was $119 for adults and $99 for kids. And this by far was my favorite excursion during the whole entire sailing. With this, lunch was included and a drink. So around 9:45, we met at the Walt Disney Theater, and we were at the beach until around 2:45. You were able to bring towels from the ship, so I do recommend a backpack or a large bag, or even that castaway bag you get as a gift when you enter your room is a perfect bag to carry 4 or 5 towels. We then boarded a little four boat that drove through the Sir Francis Drake Channel. It was about a 45-minute boat ride with beautiful views of the island. Then once we got to a dock, we got off that dock and then got onto a open air safari Jeep with sat about 15-30 people, and that was about a 5-minute drive then to the actual beach. Once you got to the beach, you kind of walked down the beach for about 5 minutes, and you had tons of chairs and umbrellas, anything you could need basically for a whole day.
Were the umbrellas the chairs would have been, but were the umbrellas included in the 119?
Yes, everything that I'll talk about was included. There were no additional upcharges, whereas the Thomas one, I'll explain a little more of the upcharges. But with the price of the excursion, it did include a drink. So we were able to get sodas or a rum punch. The only caveat was that drink ticket did not allow you to get the painkiller, which is their famous drink, which highly recommend buying. It is a beautiful rum with nutmeg, just absolutely delicious. And that's the drink that we make at home now when we're sitting out by the pool. So painkiller, definitely buy it, definitely get it. It is delicious. As I mentioned, the water and the sand there is just gorgeous. Tons of chairs. You didn't have to fight anybody. When it was time for lunch, they had a beautiful spread of food, which included some salads with ranch and Italian dressing, pasta salad, rice and beans, barbecue jerk chicken legs and thighs, pork ribs, and tilapia. And the food was delicious. Myself and my son went up for seconds after everyone ate, got a little more of the different food to try, but it really was delicious. Also, right then and there where your chairs were, there was covered areas if you didn't want to sit on the beach and you could still see the water. And also the area where you ate lunch was covered just in case it rained. They did have restrooms right there also with outdoor showers also. The location did take cash and credit for the extra drinks that you wanted to purchase. I would say there probably was about 40 people on this excursion with us, so there was plenty of chairs. One thing I did notice in the area, there were no retail shops, so there was really no chance for us to do any shopping at the beach itself. But once you got back to port, there was stuff there. You did receive a water bottle, cold water bottle for everybody in your sailing group on the boat ride back, which was really nice because it was a very hot day at the beach. Overall, highly recommend this excursion. Well worth the money, well worth the beach time.
Sounds like honestly an awesome excursion.
Yeah.
Great details there. Again, as Chris mentioned, he did book that through DCL. Joss Van Dyke Beach Day D65. And so we moved back towards the port. Did you have any time to do anything before you got right back on the ship, or did we just get right back on board?
I think we did get back on the ship right away. We were pretty tired and wanted to kind of shower and unwind and get ready for one of my favorite nights. Any sailing would be the pirate night.
Well, why don't we start? Did we go to pirate night dinner?
We did. Yes, we did. And there are a couple highlights of the menu that never changes. We enjoy the crab cakes. I really enjoy the carrot and cilantro soup. And a couple of the entrees are our favorites are going to be the Jack Treasures of the Seas, which is a pasta dish with shrimp and scallops. And then my favorite dessert is the bananas in paradise. It's banana bread with hazelnut Nutella type filling that you just can't go wrong.
Was this in Animators?
Nope, that was in Enchanted Garden for us.
Well, did we get up to anything before we closed out our Tortola Day?
Yes, we went up to the pirate party that evening with the fireworks. I'll typically try to go up and get a spot on the upper deck to enjoy the show and the fireworks. It's one of our favorite nights. We all kind of dress up in pirate costumes that we have. My daughter has a cute little pirate dress. My wife and I would typically have pirate matching shirts and wear a bandana, some eye patches, and we'll have little Pirates of the Caribbean, like temporary tattoos and little rings that my daughter likes to give out to other seafaring children. So the Pirates Night Show is a big plus for us. One thing that we truly enjoy on these Caribbean or Bohemian sailings.
Love that it is a whole family affair for Pirate Night. Well, moving on, we have our next day. We are in St. Thomas. What did we have planned for this day?
St. Thomas, we had Megan's Bay Beach Break, which is ST27. For adults, it was 79, and for kids, it was 59. This one, we met in the Walt Disney Theater around 9:15. Again, same thing with the towels, grabbed our bag, and we then got off the ship and boarded a open air safari Jeep with about 15 people and about a 25-minute ride. Again, received a bottle of water to enjoy during the Jeep ride. But one thing that drew me to this excursion, besides the gorgeous beach, was that this would stop before going to the beach for views. So basically at the top of the mountain, there's a little lookout area. The car or the Jeep will stop. We'll all get out, take photos, and then head down to the beach. Versus some of the other excursions will cut your beach day shorter so that you could stop at that photo opportunity on the way back to the ship. I like that it was kind of done first. The views are breathtaking from the lookout area. And while you're driving, you could get beautiful photos of the ship you just got off of also. A double photo opportunity. I would definitely have your phone out on a carabiner or something around your neck because your phone can get thrown from the car. So definitely have it secure, but you definitely want to have it ready for some great photos. So after we stopped and took the photos, we probably arrived to the beach around 10:15, and pickup time was around 1. So around three and a half hours on the beach. There was a nice area that was set aside for us since we booked the excursion through Disney. We had chairs, we did have umbrellas, and you did have the opportunity that if you wanted to upgrade to a little cabana or a nicer chair, I guess I would say, they had a whole little menu of offerings that you could upgrade to if you weren't satisfied with what was provided. Now, one thing that was different, the food was not included on this excursion. And I will be honest, I had a sticker price when we went to go purchase lunch. My son got fish tacos, a drink, and some plantains, and I think it was over $40. So I was surprised, but totally understood. We're on a remote area, so make sure they did take cash and credit card. There was gratuity added to every transaction also. So just be wary. The food is a little expensive. As far as the water and the beach, again, the water there was beautiful blue, just absolutely what you would imagine a Caribbean sea looking like. Sand was super soft. They did have a little small shop there that if you needed snorkel gear, towels, or sunscreen, there was stuff there for purchase. This beach was actually much more crowded than the previous day's beach. This seemed to be a lot more of an attraction, and there were a lot more resorts that were set up throughout the beach. So it was much busier, but I don't think that hindered anything. There was still plenty for us to do. There was even some coves for some of the teenagers to kind of go off and explore a little, which my son made a friend, and they went around and kind of jumped from the rocks also. So there was a lot to do besides just a beach day. This location had tons of bathrooms, outdoor showers also, but they were a decent walk to get to those bathrooms. So it's a little of a pain compared to the previous excursion, but there are bathrooms there for everyone to use. So after the pickup, they drove us back in the same taxis. The same driver was there, and then they kind of drop you off at the shops. So this area had lots and lots of shops, and that's when we went to explore and get a couple little trinkets for us to remember the port and a couple things for family and friends. So there was tons and tons of shopping to do right at St. Thomas.
Awesome. While we're talking about shopping, do you guys have any trinkety type of things that you and your family collect from each trip?
Yeah, so we're always get my mother-in-law a magnet from wherever we are. That's one big thing. And over the past year and a half, I've been real big into getting Spirit jerseys, just Disney Cruise Line for my wife. So we'll kind of see based on where the sailing is, if we get a ship-specific one, the one that's typically on all the ships, or a castaway or lookout one. So that's one of the big things. And then after this sailing, I've started to collect the atrium statues for all the ships to put in our living area. But we just like to also go and see all the local stuff that is offered, different type of shirts, different type of logos. It's just fun to kind of explore what the locals have to offer.
Looking back at both of your port days, are you happy with the choices that you made?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. We're a big beach family. There was only one excursion ever looking back that we booked through Disney Cruise Line that I probably didn't enjoy. Other than that, we're really enjoy beach days. I think eventually, as the kids get a little older, maybe we'll look to doing some cultural tours, a little different than just beach days. But right now, we love just going and relaxing at the beach. And I don't mind paying a little more to have lunch included because I really enjoy. I'm a foodie. I love taking photos of all the food we eat during the sailing. So I love trying some of the local cuisine, which would be offered at all the resorts versus just getting like a burger or something like that. I want the spicy chicken or the fish tacos. That's fish caught locally.
Did you feel like you got your values worth out of both of these excursions?
The Tortola one, absolutely. I know it was a lot to get on a boat and then a car ride, but the food and just the location was outstanding. I really thought we got definitely our money's worth. Megan's Bay, would I do it again? Probably not. Would I go there? Yes. But would I maybe just take a taxi and pay to get on the beach versus necessarily have a excursion done by Disney? You might also get more time at the beach if you were to just take a taxi yourself. But then you run the risks of not booking something with Disney Cruise Line. So I would not book Megan's Bay Beach again through Disney, but I would consider going to the beach again.
Yeah, and it is easy at Megan's, well, both these ports, honestly, to take a taxi to the beach, and it's going to be that open air Jeep taxi for the most part. And St. Thomas, those taxis will go to several beaches. The only flaws are when you want to leave, they fill up the taxi before you can leave. But it's sort of like the Disney excursion. You don't just get to leave anytime you want. It has to be time for that one to leave as well. So definitely. And then you're paying for your beach chairs and umbrella separately, but it's not going to be, the price of the Disney excursion. With the Disney excursion, you don't have to do any of the thinking, right? So it's weighing that.
We've typically always have booked excursions through Disney Cruise Line just for that ease.
Yeah, it's definitely nice knowing that you are basically guaranteed to get back to the ship. Well, we get on board. Where was dinner for our St. Thomas Day?
St. Thomas was in Royal Court, and we had the Captain's Gala dinner. So this is the very nice, beautiful menu that has oysters Rockefeller to start, very nice aged prosciutto, nice baked eggplant. I think we kind of got one of every appetizer and just split it between the table. And then this is the dinner that you're able to order a nice lobster tail. You could have a crusted fettuccine with some chicken. But really, one of my favorite things on this menu is a little hidden gem. It's the green pea and fava bean risotto. If you go back to Enchanted Gardens first night, the sea bass, which is on a bed of risotto, this is pretty much the same risotto, and they just do a marvelous, marvelous job. I would almost say it's as good as the risotto that we got in Palo dinner when we did years ago. But this risotto, I just get a whole plate of it, just enjoy it.
I'm not going to lie, until you brought up this menu, I forgot how much of a hit this menu was the last time we sailed. This is a solid menu.
And this is a real good night. This is typically your formal night. Great night to dress up, get a couple of those photos that can turn into Christmas cards you mail out to family, or you just enjoy a good dressing up. So it is a fun night on a 7-night sailing.
Did your family dress up and do the photos and everything?
So we'll typically dress up, not necessarily. We'll get the photos when they're walking around during the restaurant. We're never dressed early enough to get in the long lines for the professional photos before getting into dinner. But typically, especially on a longer night, to talk about the photo package, we will purchase the entire photo package pre-cruise. Get what percentage you save, but you do save money by pre-booking it. Doesn't matter which day you book it on your booking window. And then if there was one sailing where we did not get any photos during dinner, went and talked to them, and we were able to downgrade to a smaller photo package, or they're able to cancel it altogether as long as it's done before the last day or the last evening of the sailing.
Yes. And that's a normal thing. Like, you don't have to beg them to do it. So if a family is considering getting the photo package in advance, they can actually pay for it, get the discount, and then they can downgrade it to either buy no photos or buy 1 or 2 or get the 10 photo package. So you have some options, but you can have it to save that money if it makes sense to get it. So you guys don't do a lot of characters, but you get the photo package?
So we'll typically, in the past, we have definitely done a good amount of characters. Will we typically go and get in line for one? not necessarily. Stitch has been huge in this family lately, so we definitely got photos with Stitch sometime during the sailing. I forgot which day. And then there was, ironically, I went down to guest services with Brooklyn and Jake, Pirate Night, all dressed up. And guess who's behind us is Pirate Stitch. I didn't even know that he dresses up. So we have great photos with my camera of Pirate Stitch. In the past, we've definitely been huge components of the Royal Gathering. I would typically book that for Brooklyn and any other princesses that she's interested in or wants to go see. I think once we get on the ships and then she sees them, she gets more and more interested as the sailing goes on. But off at first, she probably wants to see one or two, and then we'll always want to wait for Stitch, even though he always has the longest line.
Did we do anything else to close out your St. Thomas Day?
Yes. That evening, we saw a percussion and comedy called Junk. My daughter absolutely loved this. She loved it so much that we stopped after and got photos with the four guys that did it. It was a lot of fun. So basically, it is four or five gentlemen that have a bunch of different trash cans and different types of stuff you maybe find around your house that they're able to make music with. One is able to kind of break dance to the music, and they sing, and it's just an hour-long, just absolute fun. Kind of reminds me of the Blue Man Group, if you're familiar with that. Kind of the same premises. I think maybe they're from Australia, or I could be wrong. But it was definitely a lot of fun. We enjoyed that show.
Yeah, Katie and I didn't get to see them on our last sailing because we went to go see them. They were playing in the Tube for their evening show, and there were people literally like out the door trying to listen to this show. There was not a seat to be had. So we unfortunately turned it around and said, well, I guess that's not for us tonight. This brings us into our next sea day. And this was also your Palo brunch day. Why don't we go ahead and go right into that?
Yeah, with us, my wife and I are first sailing as Platinum. I made sure to secure a Palo brunch reservation. This is the first time that we had a Palo brunch before. On other sailings, we did have a Palo dinner here and there, which we've highly enjoyed, but this was the first time we got brunch. And typically, in the past, if we've done a adult dining, which has always been Palo, I would try to book it earlier in the sailing, especially a 7-night. Just as the days go by, you get more and more stuffed and you just don't want to eat as much. But I circled this on the calendar and did a lot of research of what we wanted to try on Palo brunch. So I couldn't wait. This was by far also our best cast member. I know, Lake, you love asking that question about, is there any influential or cast members you want to highlight? We had a brunch server named Herlinia, and she was absolutely outstanding. Funny story, just fast forward to disembarkation. I thought we saw her in Cabanas. So we went up and was like, thank you so much for your amazing time. And kind of looked at us funny. And then she said, oh, let me get my sister. So she literally had a twin sister.
Stop it.
She was around the corner and she came over and said hello. And we got to meet her twin sister at the same time. It was so funny. And the only reason why I wasn't sure if it was her, because one had a mole or a freckle or something above her on her cheek that I was like, I don't remember seeing that. But she looked exactly like her. And lo and behold, she had a twin on the same ship. I thought that was awesome that they got to do that together. So back to Palo brunch. I love doing research. I'm a huge foodie. So I could not wait to get dressed up, sit down with my wife. We sent Brooklyn to the kids club. I talked to the counselors there and said, she hasn't really spent a lot of time here. We have Palo brunch, just to make sure they gave a little extra TLC if she wanted to go earlier, because I know this is going to be 1.5 to 2 hour type of meal. So lo and behold, she had fun. She had a blast. They never contacted us. So that was awesome. So we sit down. I remember one thing from my Palo dinner that always amazed me was the iced tea. And it wasn't because the iced tea tastes good. It was because they use iced tea to make the ice cubes. So your iced tea never got diluted. That was always one thing I would love. They would bring me a glass of ice cubes made with iced tea. And then they would pour the iced tea in. And then they would bring me 5 or 6 different sugars. But I always just asked for a little simple syrup to add it. But I always loved Paolo's iced teas.
Never have I recalled hearing this.
And then my wife started with a delicious Bloody Mary. That's one of her favorite drinks. So looking at the menu, there was one thing that was not on there that I've heard on so many different podcasts. So as soon as the waitress came out, I begged and pleaded, and I was like, can you please make the grape and gorgonzola pizza? And let me tell you, if you've ever watched Ratatouille, and when Anton eats the ratatouille and it zones back to his childhood, that was how I felt when I took the first bite out of this pizza. The sweetness of the grape and the tartness of the gorgonzola cheese. I was just absolutely in heaven. And nothing else mattered during brunch. It was just life changing. And I ate the whole pie. Sarah had a slice, and I would slowly eat a slice after each course of brunch, and then saved one for my last dessert because they get the special semolina flour from Italy. It was just hands down probably one of the best things I've ever eaten on a Disney cruise at all. Kind of take a step back. We started with the meat antipasto, and Sarah started with a poached egg with hollandaise sauce with salmon. Those were both delicious. I ordered one of the soups, the celery and the tomato. I know that's a big hit a lot of people talk about, and the soups did not disappoint. They were outstanding, especially the tomato soup. I think that was my favorite of the two. Then the pizza came out, and I was in heaven. For our main course, I had them bring out 2 of the mushroom raviolis for us to try, and we went with the chicken parm, which was delicious. Definitely highly recommend it. The ravioli was very good too. I was reminded me of when we had Palo dinner, a little different, but the eglonati, or basically the squash ravioli with the butter sauce, just delicious, absolutely delicious. Then we got a nice round of coffee. I love the different kinds of sugars they bring out: a dark, a brown, light, like a rock candy sugar, basically like a little tray with 5 different sugars to add to your coffee. And then we split 2 desserts. We did the limoncello tart and the panna cotta, and both were just outstanding. The food was just delicious. I can't recommend Palo Brunch more unless you're on the same sailing as me and I need a reservation. I don't recommend it, but I would highly recommend it. It's you go on a cruise, and yes, all the food you can get is included, and that food is delicious. But this is just a notch up.
Also, another fun fact fun hack for the pizza is you can ask for it to be half and half. Mm-hmm. So you can get it half one way and half another way if you're looking to maximize what you try without maximizing the impact to your stomach.
Yes.
Very nice. And so when we were leaving, I unfortunately don't remember the manager's name, but he was very nice. He came over and he had a couple questions for my camera. So we started talking about photography. So while walking out, he's like, let me get your camera. And so my wife and I have these amazing photos underneath the meatball and pasta chandelier in Palo. And it was nice seeing someone that had a passion for photography take our photos, because he's doing this angle, holding the camera this way, kind of bending down, getting photos going up, photos going. I was like, this is like, it was amazing.
There's a meatball chandelier in Palo.
He's talking about the chandelier when you enter with the red and the white. It's a very traditional Italian chandelier, like glass blown chandeliering when you walk in. All right, well, moving on, I'm sure you are plenty stuffed from this brunch, but how did we fill the rest of your sea day?
We had some daddy-daughter time, and my wife went and got a massage at Sense. Not sure which massage she got, but she had something later in the afternoon, so all the food was digested. As soon as I got Brooklyn from the kids club, we went up to the pool deck, got some lunch for her, and we went in the pool. And after that, we probably went and grabbed Jake and spent some time watching Funnel Vision with lots and lots of soft serve ice cream. Not for me, I was stuffed, but for the kids.
Moving into the evening, I'm sure you may still be a little stuffed, but somehow I imagine you sneaked some room in for dinner.
Yes. This is the animation magic dinner menu where you get to draw some of your favorite characters and they show up on the screen dancing to music. It's our favorite kind of interactive dinners, getting to wait and watch and see where your character shows up. So that's always a ton of fun. As far as the menu itself, this was the night that they have chicken schnitzel and the beef Wellington. So my wife and I split those. We kind of had it light that evening since we were still stuffed from Palo. I'm pretty sure Brooklyn had a mac and cheese, and Jake would have also ordered the beef Wellington. He's a steak eater, and I don't think we had desserts that night. We probably were still stuffed from Palo brunch. But the highlight of that evening is definitely seeing your characters come to life on the big screens.
It's so cool. I love that show so much.
Yeah, that is such a good dinner. That beef Wellington was surprisingly delightful. But I also like, even in between the actual animation magic, it's like just a nice variety show of Disney music. And I don't know, I just vibe with that a lot. I know it's like kind of generic Disney, but I am A-okay with that.
They show the little clips too that night, right? Like the different dinner scene. I really enjoy that one too. It's a show that you can still communicate through. You can still have a lovely chat, but have a show. Entertainment for all.
Well, did we do anything else that night before we packed it in for an exciting last full day?
That was Frozen. So we made it through about halfway of the show. I know we were getting quite tired that evening, but yes, we did go in and enjoy the beginning of Frozen in the Walt Disney Theater.
Awesome. Well, why don't we move to our last day? This is your Castaway day. What did we have planned for Castaway?
Castaway is just a great beach day for us. We'll typically go up and have some breakfast at Cabanas and then make our way to the second tram stop or family beach that has the Pelican Plunge. Typically like to swim out there and go through the slides a couple times. We'll also go over to the first beach and swim out to the big obstacle course that's in the middle of the water there. This time, my daughter did want to try snorkeling, but we just used our goggles and swam out to the first or second buoy. We got to see Dumbo. She was amazed how they put all these little things underneath the water for you to swim down and see. So that was one fun thing that we got to try the first time at Castaway that we haven't done before. We will also typically enjoy the barbecue lunch there at Cookies or Cookies 2, whatever one we're closer to, get a burger, hot dogs, and then make the infamous ice cream sandwich with the hard chocolate chip cookies and the soft serve.
Go for it.
I was just gonna, you weren't kidding when you were food focused. I mean, not in a bad way, but I love it that you're just like all like the little highlights that people have, you have it rolled into one.
I try to remember all the little notes that I take from all the podcasts I listen to, and then I go back after the sailing and kind of look at all the food photos and try to remember what stood out in our mind and what we enjoyed, so we'll know next time to make sure we get to enjoy it again. I also love shopping at the merchandise shops on Castaway, since it's the only spot you can get stuff. It's a lot of fun to go and see what new stuff, new pins or spirit jerseys or shirts that are offered there that you can't get anywhere else.
Did we get any merch while we were on Castaway?
Yes, I think we got a Stitch pin, and I would guess we got a shirt and a magnet. So yes, we did get a couple things. Yes, and I did, because I learned here that even though you're platinum and you get 10% off at shops on the ship, that does not translate to Lookout or Castaway. You don't get those discounts in the stores on those islands.
No discounts, plus the added sales tax.
Also, a good note for Castaway is both the shops have different stuff in them. So it's usually worth checking out both, because I know typically only one of them carries like the 5K merch and that sort of thing.
The second one.
Yep, by the seashore. Well, moving back towards the ship then, it is your final evening and your final dinner on board. Where was your last meal?
The last meal was an Enchanted Garden. It was the Prince and Princess menu. So there we started with the Enchanted Garden platter, which was a charcuterie plate and the shrimp appetizer. For our salad, we had a pancetta salad And then for our main course, we had the portobello ravioli and the New York sirloin steak. For dessert, this was one of my favorite desserts was the creme brulee cheesecake. That was really delicious. And also the strawberry and cream tower. Those would be my two recommendations off of the Prince and Princess menu.
All right. Well, moving on from dinner, it is our last evening. Are we the type of people to stay out and try to savor every moment? How did we fill our time?
That evening, we did go and watch Disney's Believe, the last Broadway show in the Walt Disney Theater. Typically, we'll try to end the sailing by doing something together as a family, and that's what we decided on was going and watching the show. After that, make our way, sadly, to the stateroom to begin packing up. We didn't start a little of that before dinner, so we could get our bags out the night before for them to pick up for us.
One tip too that people might not be aware, and I've talked about it a couple times, but they do put the shows on the TV, and it's not like the current actors, it's some recorded show from whenever. You can play the show while you pack. If you're not a party all-nighter, I know Lake goes out and sees all the places and closes down the joint, but I usually am not. So I like that I can still watch the show, but pack at the same time.
Very nice.
Not every night, because there's other days where I'm up at 4 a.m. doing other fun things. My turn to digress. Well, sadly, it is our disembarkation. How was the disembarkation process for you, and how did you make your way back to the airport and home?
So we typically will stay in the room as late as possible. We have never made it to the sit-down breakfast. We'll typically go up to Cabanas or Marceline Market after 8 o'clock before they shut down at 8:30.
8:30 sharp.
Yep, I've seen that. And then we will take the Disney transfers back to the airport and fly home. One thing that I've learned over the years, since family of 4, we probably have about 4, 5, 6, I don't know, suitcases, is that I instead of handwriting out all those luggage tags every night, because I know we're going to use Disney to take off the luggage instead of doing express walk off, I actually just pre-print all of our information on like little label envelopes, and we'll bring them with me, and I'll just stick them on all the characters so I don't have to write out the same thing 6 times. So that's been a fun little hack that I like to do. We'll always go up to the buffet. I don't think we've ever made the 6:45, I think, roughly, for that last morning breakfast. So we make sure to say goodbye to our staff and thank them for becoming part of our family over the last sailing, and then eat a little at the buffet and then head off. One thing that was really nice, this was our first sailing where Port Canaveral now has the facial recognition. So that was, I would say, from getting off the ship to being on the bus, had to be 15 minutes at the most. And that honestly was probably 10 minutes walking, because, you have to go through tons of zigzags to eventually get to the area where your bags are, and then get your bags and then walk off. But that facial recognition has really amazing. If you were to tell anyone, I would push passports as much as possible to make getting off that ship easy.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, it is so quick. I think almost most ships now have adopted this policy, and it's made disembarkation a breeze in most situations. We are a big fan of that as well.
So I had a question. Did your son, I know we briefly talked about it in the beginning that he went and checked in, but did he end up going to Edge and Vibe?
Yes, pretty much every day. Every day for hours. Which one? Well, I know. So the first day we went and signed the waiver so that he can age up to Vibe. So, and I knew that because he got a little sticker to put on his Key to the World card. So I'm not sure which one he spent more time with. He probably went to one, and if his friends weren't there, went to the other, or vice versa.
So that's good. So he went there. Did he go every day after dinner?
Yeah, he basically, one of my requirements for him on the sailing is that he has to at least eat dinner with us. So typically he will eat dinner and then maybe not eat dessert if his friends are waiting, or they're trying to go play a pickup game of basketball. He loves the wish ships for the indoor basketball. I know exactly where he is all the time. That's where he is playing basketball unless the end credit course is up. So he's a huge basketball lover, and that's where he'll always be. So I think once he makes friends, we'll occasionally see him running around the ship doing some of their scavenger hunts or going and watching the movies. They kind of congregate and meet at the kids clubs or teens clubs, but then find their ways somewhere throughout the ship, whether it's getting ice cream, going to the pools, doing something. So I don't know if they're actually at the club doing stuff, or it's more of meeting at the club and then we'll explore and do stuff around the ship.
Well, you have already answered this one a little bit, but did you have any other notable cast interactions you wanted to hit on?
Besides the outstanding server at Palo, that's who I would say really made the sailing magical was our interactions with her, and then our funny little interaction with her on disembarkation day. And unfortunately, that Palo manager's name that I can't think of right now, he was a lot of fun just talking photography. So those were probably some of our two best cast interactions during the sailing.
Awesome. Well, what is next for you and your family?
Next for our family is a 5-night on the Magic Halloween on the High Seas, where we stop at Castaway and Lookout.
Awesome. Sounds like a great sailing. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. Before we close out the show, you are pretty active in the Disney Cruise Line community. Where can our listeners find you and follow you?
Yep. So my handles on social media is going to be DCL Cruising Dad, and that's also the website where I'll put up photos of the food we've eaten on the ships, my trip reports for every cruise that we've been on. If you want to learn more about what is offered on each ship, the website's kind of broken down into each ship and all that's offered on those ships. Also, I have a great first-time cruisers page that talks about fish extenders, Disney ground transfers, talks about basically anything and everything you want to know about Disney Cruise Line. And then I have all the photos that I take. I make videos of each ship. So if you're curious about some of the food that's been offered on the Wish, Dream, or Fantasy, go check out my YouTube page at DCL Cruising Dad 2022 when I started doing all this, thanks to my wife who made the recommendation because I had so many notes from our previous sailings and so much knowledge. She's like, you have to start sharing this with people. So appreciate her getting me to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely make sure to check him out. He has very, very thorough details on everything, as you can probably figure out from this episode, which has been fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show again. But that is going to do it for this episode of the DCL Podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show. Once again, we want to thank Chris for coming on and sharing his and his family's adventure on the Disney Fantasy. Make sure to follow Chris at DCLCruisingDad.com. If you're enjoying the show, please make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We would also like to thank our Patreons who help make this show happen each and every week for us. You too can help support the show by visiting patreon.com/DCLPodcast. Whether you're boarding a cruise, enjoying a trip to the parks, or adventuring outside of Disney, on behalf of myself, Christy, and Steve, we want to wish you smooth sailings and safe travels, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.